So tonight we just wanted to get everybody a little bit more familiarized with what these two advanced projects are as part of the Walk Bridge program. So the CP243 interlocking project, and just to get everybody familiar with what that vernacular means, CP in railroad terms is a control point. And so the railroads are kind of operated by different geographic blocks along a corridor, and a control point is a designation for one of those locations that controls the signals and communications related to that particular stretch of the corridor. On the New Haven line, CP2, 2 represents the New Haven line of Metro North, and 43 represents the distance from Grand Central Terminal geographically where we are on the line. So we are at control point 2 on the New Haven line, 43 miles from Grand Central Terminal. And what an interlocking is essentially it's a set of signal controls, railroad signalized controls that allow movement. So if you think about on city streets and your traffic lights and everything, the railroads have something similar, and the interlocking controls all of those train movements to be able to go from one track to another. We do have 4 tracks in this area, and we want to be able to keep trains moving as best as we can. It's also been a long-term desire of the department to continue to bring efficiencies, operational efficiencies, and flexibility to the New Haven line so that the commuting public isn't impacted whenever there's maintenance operations or other work that goes on the New Haven line. With the Walk Bridge being a focus and the overall construction staging of the Walk Bridge, it was determined that the interlocking project was going to be a benefit not only long-term to the corridor, but also when Walk Bridge construction starts and we have to take the railroad down to a 2-track railroad, going down from 4 tracks down to 2 tracks. So the CP243 project in and of itself is a series of rail improvements that allow the trains to switch from one of those 4 tracks to the others to allow for the train traffic to keep moving in the corridor. So railroads are different in many ways from highways. One of the biggest differences is that there are only set locations where you can actually change lanes or change tracks. In this vicinity of the Walk Bridge, there's no distance, or there's a distance of about 8 miles from South Norwalk Station to the east where you can't change tracks. That's a little bit of a problem in terms of keeping trains moving efficiently. And so what the interlocking is doing is introducing a set of switches that will allow those train movements and will allow for that efficient commuter traffic to continue. The interlocking itself is about 1.5 miles to the east of the Norwalk River and the Walk Bridge. And the intent is that this project is going to be implemented without any appreciable degradation to the current train service. So if you're a commuter and you're interested in knowing what's going to happen to your train that you take daily, there's a lot of work going into determining the impacts to rail traffic, and the intent, again, is to limit any impacts during construction. So let's take a look at the limits of the CP243 project itself, and this project is kind of segregated into different areas of the type of work. It does extend to the south at South Norwalk Station, and it actually extends across the Saugatuck River in Westport. That mainly involves a lot of railroad signal and communications work. The heart of the project for the interlocking is in that blow-up box that you see there in the magenta lines. That's where all of that railroad work is going on with the installation of new railroad switches. There's new drainage systems. There's new catenary structure, and the catenary is the overhead lines that power the trains. So there's a series of catenary structures being incorporated as well. So the project is multidisciplined. It has railroad signals and communication work. It has catenary work, track work, and civil work primarily make up the bulk of the work. The distance of the magenta, or the length, the track length, it does extend a little bit to the west of Triangle Street and then it heads to the east, as you can see there. That total distance is about 6,000 feet, roughly. But the bulk of the work is kind of consolidated into a distance of about 3,000 feet in the Norden Place, in the vicinity of Norden Place. It's anticipated that construction is going to start this summer and have a 42-month construction duration. At issue with that construction duration is that, again, we don't want to see a lot of degradation to the rail service, and so the work has to be done in between trains during certain work windows that are allowed to keep that train traffic operational. It does impact and draw out the schedule a bit. There is an estimated cost of $210 million for the interlocking project. So what's included in that project, again, is primarily that switching configuration, railroad track switches that are added to get you from track to track. There is some realignment of the tracks to make that happen. All of the work is actually within the existing railroad right-of-way. So there's nothing that's going on, whether it be with the track alignment and things of that nature, that requires work to be constructed outside of the existing railroad right-of-way. There are upgrades to the existing signal system to modernize it. That project was actually underway before the CP243 track project actually started, and then that was those two projects were integrated into one another. And then I mentioned the overhead catenary system that is also going to be constructed to accommodate the new track switches. We have some visuals. We've been, the project team has been developing 3D visuals to kind of help us all understand what's going on with the project and to help with construction and things of that nature. A lot of these images will be posted to the project website, walkbridgect.com, where you can go and browse through the portfolio of images that you see here. So this view here is essentially looking at the interlocking. You can kind of see, if you look closely, some of the track switches that are installed there. This is looking to the east. Again, the work is being implemented within the right-of-way of the railroad. This just represents some new signal work that goes on as part of the project, again, right in front of Norden Place. And a good shot of the corridor, again, looking to the east with the number of new catenary structures that are going to be installed as part of the work. Now, you will notice that there are a number of trees that do align the corridor, and the department is embarking on a study to evaluate the need to do selective trimming of the trees. In this particular stretch, on the north side of the corridor, it's likely that there will be a number of trees that are removed in order to accommodate the construction. On the south side, that tree clearing will be selective in nature, with the idea being that a replanting in kind will take place at the end of the project to replenish those trees that may get removed. But there are trees that are in the way of the work, whether it be for access or for any of the permanent project features that are going to be constructed, and so that tree clearing will advance, and that will likely commence with the start of construction later this summer. Moving on to the second advanced breakout project, the Danbury Branch Dockyard project. We kind of collectively shorten the terms for all of these, and we just call it all the interlocking. But the interlocking is that CP243 track project. But the other feature of the advanced project is the work that's going to be done on the Danbury Branch. And on the Danbury Branch, right now, the rail service there is accommodated by the diesel locomotives, and that is going to continue through the implementation of these improvements on the Danbury Branch. But as John mentioned, what happens on the Danbury line is that there's an opportunity to remove about a dozen trains a day from the main line. So in round numbers, on the main line, there's about 150 trains a day, give or take, that go through Norwalk and cross the Walk Bridge. So that's a lot of trains on all four of the tracks. And there's a series of express service trains that basically shuttle between South Norwalk and Stamford as part of the express service. And those trains head east and west or north and south, depending on whether you're speaking geographically or by railroad terms. And when they switch directions, they actually have to, after they leave South Norwalk Station, they have to travel across the Walk Bridge to then head back to Stamford. So that just adds more train traffic in the area, and what we want to do is we want to alleviate the number of trains in the area when Walk Bridge construction does take place. So the Danbury branch serves a couple of functions. The primary one is to eliminate those trains that do require the turning movements on Walk Bridge and make those turn movements on the Danbury branch. Problem is the Danbury branch right now doesn't have any overhead electrification. And so what has to happen is that there's a stretch of the Danbury branch extending about a mile north from the main line that does get electrified. And that electrification will accommodate those trains that are on the main line to essentially peel off at the Y, and the Y, that's W-Y-E, the railroad Y, which is essentially the switch from the main line that takes trains up the Danbury branch. And those trains will get out of the way of Walk Bridge and head to the north, and then they'll switch directions and head south. So a big focus of the Danbury branch improvements is the catenary system. So like Walk Bridge, the project itself is kind of compartmentalized into a couple mini geographic zones. In the green zone on the southern part of the Danbury branch project is a series of track realignment work and some new catenary. And then in the blue, because of the addition of new tracks and catenary, there's actually a bridge superstructure replacement, and the superstructure is the girders that carry the trains. And that work is being done at Ann Street. And so the Ann Street Bridge superstructure gets replaced. The existing substructure, for the most part, is retained in order to keep that existing historic appearance at that structure. Then as we continue to head north, there's more tracks, there's more catenary that gets added, and there's a series of tracks close to I-95 that really kind of becomes almost a mini yard that can actually have more storage purposes for trains, whether it be Metro North maintenance trains or contractor work trains, to, again, get things out of the way so that the commuter traffic on the main line is best served. Like the CP243 project, the Danbury project is slated to begin this summer in July. It has a shortened construction schedule of about 30 months at a construction cost, overall cost of about $75 million. So these rail improvements, again, are there to alleviate congestion on the main line, going from where the Y from the main line is located about a mile north, just past Jennings Place, are the overall limits of the project. We're adding those new tracks up by I-95 that are termed as sidings. So basically, you have the ability to pull equipment off of the Danbury main line, and again, the diesel traffic is going to continue throughout, and the electrification will only run about a mile to the north. There's upgrades to the communication and the signal system, and to accommodate that electrification, there has to be new structures that do get added. So this image here just kind of shows the progression from the main line, which is on the bottom, down here, where we start out with one track, we go to two tracks, and then we have three tracks, and we go to three tracks across the Ann Street Bridge. And then as we approach I-95, as we go further to the north, then there's a series of non-electrified tracks that again are there to promote that railroad operation flexibility and the ability to alleviate congestion on the main line. Similar to the CP243 project, the Danbury project also has a tree clearing exercise that will commence here once we get into full bloom, so we can really see what's going on to identify any obstructions with construction, whether it be construction access or construction installation of any new project components. And also, similar to CP243, is that the idea is that we want to start with selective clearing, meaning that if there's something that is specifically in the way of the construction operations, we want to be able to limit the impacts to the vegetation, with full removal being kind of a last resort. But there may be instances where a full removal of a tree or a series of trees may not be avoidable. In that case, once construction is completed, a replanting in kind of trees is then envisioned as well. I mentioned the Ann Street Bridge replacement. It's a superstructure replacement, so the girders, again, the horizontal beam elements that you see that carry the trains across Ann Street, those are going to be replaced. The look is going to be, as best we can, reminiscent of the existing structure. It's going to be, the new girders are going to be made out of what we call weathering steel. Some of you may be familiar with Core 10 in architectural applications. It's the same kind of thing. It's rusty steel, so it has that historic look and feel to it. And again, the existing abutments are going to be retained for the most part. And that's there to really kind of help limit impacts to the businesses and residences adjacent to Ann Street, to the Ann Street Bridge. So a before and after shot of that with the retention of the existing abutments. We do understand the importance of being able to identify traffic impacts. There is, as part of the overall program, an intense study underway from a traffic analysis standpoint to identify what those impacts are during construction. One thing that I did fail to mention previously, but we have mentioned in other meetings, is that this project is being delivered by the CMGC process. And what that CMGC stands for is Construction Manager General Contractor. And so we have a contracting team on board right now that we have the ability to understand their means and methods, how they're going to build things, how long it's going to take, et cetera. So we can really take that input and put it into the traffic models that we have to really understand and provide more realistic information as far as any roadway closures and necessary detours. So the Ann Street Bridge work is going to be completed with, at this time, 2 discrete closures of Ann Street of about 50 days apiece. And the reason why that methodology was selected was to basically accelerate the overall construction of Ann Street Bridge, get it done as quickly as we can, and then just get out of the way. If there was a desire to maintain traffic to a certain extent at that location, it would just draw out the construction that much more. So at this time, that's being envisioned for Ann Street Bridge. There will be a lot of advance notice of any detours, any roadway closures, a lot of signage as well, so that there's an understanding of what is happening with the Ann Street Bridge. There is the intent to maintain pedestrian traffic through Ann Street during construction. That being said, there's certain periods of time where there's construction operations that are going to happen where it's, from a public safety standpoint, you will have to shut things down for brief periods of time. And those periods of time will be well communicated through the various platforms that we have, social media, newsletters, et cetera.